Welcome back to the Metabolic Compass podcast, where we recalibrate your biology and rediscover your direction. I'm your host, Brandon Soiko. If a glass of wine, a slice of aged cheese, or reheated leftovers leave you flushed, itchy, stuffy, headachy, or sprinting to the bathroom, you're not mysteriously sensitive. You're likely hitting your histamine budget. Today, we're going to map that budget with the Metabolic Compass so you know exactly which domain to start in and in what order to quiet the noise and get your life back. Here's the promise. In the next half hour, you'll learn why histamine is a fast alarm your body uses to protect you, how the nurture domain, the gut-liver axis and sleep rhythm, sets your baseline clearance, how Energize, steady meals, and calm mitochondria keep that alarm from getting amplified by glucose swings, how strengthen, smart, graded exposure raises your tolerance to heat, pressure, and effort, and how withdraw, freshness rules, alcohol guardrails, and medication review removes friction so the same meal causes a smaller splash. We'll end with a 10-week compass reset for histamine tolerance that you can start today, plus the red flags that mean get help now. If you've been stacking triggers without knowing it, this is the episode that gives you a clear map and the confidence to follow it. Quick safety note. If you ever experience throat or tongue swelling, trouble breathing, fainting, or rapid spreading hives with dizziness, treat that as anaphylaxis and seek emergency care immediately. Epinephrine first. Let's get your alarm working for you again. Today, we're not just talking about histamine. We're mapping it to the metabolic compass so you know where to start and why order matters. The compass has 4 domains: nurture, energize, strengthen, withdraw. And histamine touches each one in a distinct way. When you hear a symptom, translate it through these lenses so your first step isn't random, it's directional correct. Nurture. This is the safety gut-liver axis immune baseline. Histamine is stored in mast cells that sit under the skin, in the nose and lungs, along the gut, and around blood vessels. When they degranulate because of allergens, infections, temperature, pressure on skin, or chemical triggers, histamine floods locally within seconds. Your gut-liver axis then decides how much gets through or is cleared. DAO in the intestine and HNMT inside tissues inactivate histamine. If gut permeability is up or DAO is down, more histamine reaches circulation. People in a nurture drift often report reactive days after poor sleep or stress when barrier defenses and baseline immune tone are off rhythm. And Energize. This is the power supply, glucose stability, and mitochondria. Histamine binds to H2 receptors on the heart and stomach, nudging rate contractility and acid secretion. Glucose spikes and crashes can trigger a counter-regulatory stress response, adrenaline and cortisol, that feels like anxiety and can stack with histamine-mediated sensations like racing heart, jitteriness, and headaches. Mitochondrial redox state modulates mast cells activation. Oxidative stress can amplify mediator release, which is why steadier energy, protein-forward meals, post-meal walks, and sleep lowers background noise. Strengthen. This is reliance, capacity, and tolerance. Heat, cold, scratching, and pressure can trigger mast cells. In a strength drift, tissues overreact to normal forces. Backpack straps leave welts, a warm room triggers hives, workouts feel itchy or tight-chested. Estrogen fluctuations can also prime mast cells, explaining mid-cycle or late luteal flares. Building capacity means graded exposure and cycle-aware planning, not white-knuckled pushing. And withdraw. Subtract friction, optimize clearance. Foods high in histamine, like aged, fermented, cured meats, certain fish, and leftovers, alcohol, which can both liberate histamine and reduce DAO, and some medications like DAO inhibitors or mast cell activators raise the incoming load. The quickest wins live here: freshness rules, alcohol guardrails, and a medication review with your clinician. Hold this orientation while we go deeper. For each concept, what histamine is, how it signals, why people differ, and how symptoms cluster, we'll attach a compass readout so your next action lines up with the right domain at the right time. That's how we turn a noisy alarm back into a clear signal. Histamine is a biogenic amine cut from the amino acid histidine by histidine decarboxylase, or HDC. Think of it as a lightning-fast text message your immune system sends when something needs attention. It's packed into mast cells and basophils, especially in the skin, nose, lung, gut, and around vessels, and also produced by stomach ECL cells and certain neurons. Here's the nurture lens. Your gut and liver are the gatekeepers that decide whether histamine becomes a whisper or a shout. Two cleanup crews do the heavy lifting. DAO, or diamine oxidase, degrades histamine outside cells, most active in the small intestines and released into the blood, so it's crucial for food-borne histamine. HNMT, or histamine N-methyltransferase, works inside tissues like the brain, liver, and skin. If the gut barrier is leaky or inflamed, or DAO output is low due to genetics, dysbiosis, drugs, alcohol, more histamine gets through the gate and symptoms stack up. Bacteria complicates the picture. During fermentation or improper storage, microbes convert histidine into histamine. So this is why aged cheeses, cured meats, certain fish, and long-stored leftovers can carry high loads. In the microbiome, some species make histamine while others help maintain the mucosal barrier and degrade it. So intestinal ecology shifts your histamine budget. Couple priorities. Protect the gate. Favor freshly cooked proteins or properly frozen portions. Quick chill leftovers in shallow containers. Use or freeze within 24 hours. Feed the barrier. Fiber-forward meals to support short-chain fatty acid production that tightens junctions. Sync the clock. Mast cells follow circadian cues. Steady sleep and morning light often reduce evening hives and stuffiness. Keep the math handy. Total histamine tone equals release from mast cell plus diet plus microbes minus the cleared by DAO and HNMT. When you improve the gate and cleanup crews, the same triggers makes a smaller splash. The same histamine molecule plays 4 very different songs depending on which receptor station receives it. If it's H1, this is itchy, leaks, constriction. H1 activation loosens gaps between endothelial cells and activates itch pain fibers, leading to flushing, hives, and swelling, and it can tighten bronchial smooth muscle. If H1 is loud, start with nurture, barrier protection, sleep rhythm, and layer strengthen gently, graded heat, pressure, exposure, to build tolerance over time. H2 boosts gastric acid and can nudge heart rate contractility while dilating vessels. Prioritize Energize moves that flatten glucose swings and reduce sympathetic surge. Use nurture to protect the gut lining if reflux or epigastric burn features are prominent. H3, neurotuning. Predominantly presynaptic in the CNS, H3 modulates wakefulness, appetite, nausea, and vestibular tone. If dizziness, nausea, or sleep fragmentation dominate, combine nurture, so sleep consistency and light exposure, with withdrawal, remove alcohol and sedatives around bedtime to quiet the noise floor. H4, immune traffic control. Expressed on immune cells, H4 promotes chemotaxis and chronic itch inflammation. Calm the terrain with withdrawal, reduce dietary and chemical friction, while building capacity with strengthen, progressive exercise in cool environments, cycle awareness training. And why this matters. Antihistamines block doors. They don't empty the bathtub. The compass pairs receptor-specific symptom relief with domain moves that lower input and raise clearance, so relief lasts beyond the pill window. Example, H1 dominant hives improve faster when you pair an H1 blocker with freshness rules and sleep regularity, rather than relying on medication alone. 2 people share a glass of champagne and a cheese plate. One is fine, the other flushes, gets a headache, and dashes to the bathroom. The difference isn't willpower, it's domain-specific dials. Nurture dials, gate and baseline. Low DAO from genetic variants, dysbiosis, drugs, or alcohol, or a leaky inflamed gut increase absorbed histamine. Poor sleep and stress alter mast cell reactivity across the day. If you flare after leftovers or on low sleep days, this dial is loud. Energize dial, power and redox. Big glucose swings create stress signals that feel indistinguishable from histamine surges, jittery, hot, headaches. Mitochondrial oxidative stress can prime mast cell activation. If you crash mid-afternoon and flush after coffee and pastries, this dial may be driving. Strengthen dials, capacity and triggers. Heat, cold, pressure, and scratching provoke degranulation in susceptible skin. Estrogen can prime mast cells, explaining cycle-linked flares. If backpack straps leave welts or hot yoga equals hives, your capacity dial needs gentle training. And withdraw dials, inputs and interferers. Aged fermented foods, cured meats, certain fish, and alcohol raise histamine input. Some drugs trigger mast cells, while others may inhibit DAO. If wine plus charcuterie equals guaranteed flare, this dial deserves first attention. So your compass takeaway. Your plan should start where your dial is loudest. Often withdraw for quick wins, freshness, alcohol guardrails, then nurture to repair the gate, energize to stabilize the power supply, and strengthen to raise tolerance. In that order, you lower the curve and shorten recovery time after accidental exposures. Let's decode some of the symptoms, as the same signal can be 4 different compass readouts. Skin, flush, hives, chronic itching. This is driven by H1-H4 endothelial leak and proreceptor activation. If skin dominates, begin with withdrawal, freshness, alcohol guardrails, medication review. Then nurture, sleep rhythm, fiber-forward plates, and add strengthen via graded heat pressure exposure in cool environments. H1 blockers that are clinician-guided often help. Nose and lungs, sneeze, drip, congestion, tight chest tightness and wheezing. Nasal mucosa swell and leak. Bronchial smooth muscle tightens. Cold air or exercise can amplify symptoms. Pair withdrawal, reduce staggered triggers like wine, fermented foods on training days. With Energize, steady meals to avoid stress surges. Consider clinician-guided H1 and nasal therapies. Gut, cramping, bloating, diarrhea, reflux. Histamine speeds secretion and motility, and H2 ramps acid. Symptoms within minutes or to hours after high histamine meals suggest the load is greater than the clearance. Lead with nurture, barrier support and circadian, then withdraw, freshness rules. H2 blockers may add relief for burn. Talk with your clinician. Heart and vessels. Palpitations, lightheadedness. H2 activation can nudge heart rate and contractility. Vasodilation and leaks can drop blood pressure. Stabilize, energize, protein forward breakfast, walk after meals, caffeine, and apply withdrawal to trim triggers. Brain, throbbing headaches, dizziness, motion sensitivity, sleep disruption. H3 modulates arousal and vestibular tone. Anchor nurture, sleep consistency and morning light. Withdraw alcohol near bedtime and keep evening meals low of histamine. Bladder or gynecologic. Mast cells in bladder and pelvis can sensitize nerves, and estrogen mast cell crosstalk explains monthly spikes. Blend nurture anti-inflammatory baseline with strengthen, cycle-aware training, and lighter loads in peak estrogen windows. Use the decoder to choose your starting domain instead of chasing every symptom at once. That's how you create traction without overwhelm. When it comes to histamine and allergy-like reactions, not all flares are created equal. Let's break down 4 very different scenarios and how to triage them with the compass. First, true acute allergy. This is the classic IgE-driven reaction. Within minutes of exposure, whether it's food, a bee sting, or a medication, your immune system cross-links IgE on mast cells, releasing a storm of mediators. The result? hives, swelling, sneezing, wheezing, stomach distress, or feeling lightheaded. If two or more systems are involved, or if breathing, airway, or circulation are threatened, you're looking at anaphylaxis. The compass order here is crystal clear. Nurture first, safety. Epinephrine right away, call emergency services. Then withdraw, remove the trigger. Energize and strengthen can be addressed later once recovery is underway. Antihistamines and steroids, they're add-ons, not lifesavers. Second, scombroid poisoning. This happens when dark meat fish is stored too warm. Histamine builds up in the flesh and cooking won't destroy it. Within an hour, you might feel flushing, burning in the mouth, a peppery taste, headache, palpitations, or stomach upset. Compass triage. This is a withdrawal problem, food handling. Antihistamines can help symptoms, but the real fix is better sourcing and storage. Third, histamine intolerance. Allergy tests often come back negative, but the symptoms look very similar. Here, the issue isn't an external allergen, but a total histamine load that exceeds your clearance. Low DAO enzymes, gut dysbiosis, histamine-rich foods, alcohol, and certain meds can all stack the deck. Compass triage starts with withdrawal. Fresh food, alcohol guardrails. Then layer nurture with barrier repair, energize with steady glucose, and strengthen with careful reintroduction. Diagnosis here is mostly clinical. Pattern recognition over time. Finally, mast cell activation syndrome, or MCAS. This is when mast cells themselves are dysregulated. People experience recurring multi-system episodes, and testing can show mediator shifts during flares. Response to mast cell-targeted therapies often confirms the picture. Compass triage blends nurture and withdrawal, calming the baseline while specialists guide pharmacologic stabilization. One map, 4 very different roads. That's why compass triage matters. It helps you respond in the right order instead of throwing the same tools at the 4 different problems. Now let's shift from theory to practice. Here are domain-matched moves you can start today. Withdrawal moves. Subtract friction. Follow freshness rules. Chill leftovers quickly in shallow containers. Eat or freeze within 24 hours. Thaw in the fridge, and only reheat once. Choose fresh or properly frozen food and be cautious with dark meat species or restaurant leftovers. Use alcohol guardrails. Pair drinks with low histamine meals, hydrate, and avoid alcohol on poor sleep or high stress days. Remember, alcohol both releases histamine and lowers your clearance. And don't forget medication review. Some drugs can trigger mast cells or inhibit DAO. Talk to your clinician. Never stop a prescription on your own. Nurture moves. Stabilize your baseline. Support your gut barrier with fiber-forward plates and resistant starches like cooked and cooled potatoes or rice. These feed the microbes that produce short-chain fatty acids. Anchor your circadian rhythm. Wake and sleep at consistent times. Get morning light for 5 to 10 minutes within 30 minutes of waking up. And keep evenings cool and dark. Mast cells track these rhythms. And downshift stress. Slow your breathing, reset posture, use nasal breathing. Stress peptides can prime mast cells to release more. Energize moves. Flatten the power curve. Start your day with a protein-forward breakfast. Balance meals with protein, fiber, and healthy fats to avoid spikes and crashes. Add a 10 to 15-minute walk after meals. Audit your caffeine. Too much or too late can feel just like histamine. Jittery, hot, headaches. And strengthen moves. Build tolerance safely. If heat triggers hives, practice short sessions in a cool environment. Progress slowly 5 to 10% each week. If your cycle influences flares, plan lighter training weeks mid-cycle or late luteal. Stack just a few of these moves each week. Track them in your journal and let the pattern show what's working. You're teaching your biology to trust your inputs again, one quiet success at a time. Let's talk about the body sirens, the moments where you don't troubleshoot, you act. If you ever experience swelling of the tongue or throat, hoarseness, trouble breathing, wheezing that won't ease, fainting, rapidly spreading hives with dizziness, or sudden drop in blood pressure, this is anaphylaxis. Here's your emergency compass. Nurture, safety first. Epinephrine immediately if you have an auto-injector. Then call emergency services. Lie down with legs elevated unless you're vomiting or pregnant. Withdraw. Remove the trigger. Food, stings, or medication. If possible, bring the labels or names with you to the ER. Energize. Airway support. If you're wheezing, use a rescue inhaler, but only after epinephrine. Strengthen. After recovery. Debrief with your specialist. Build an action plan, and if recommended, always carry 2 injectors. Important. Antihistamines and steroids are supportive only. They are not life-saving in anaphylaxis. When in doubt, give epinephrine. The risk of delay is greater than the risk of a properly dosed shot. Now let's bring it all together with a 10-week reset that follows the Compass sequence. Weeks 1 and 2. Withdraw and nurture base. Lower the incoming load and calm the baseline. Follow freshness rules. Swap aged and fermented foods for fresh. Use alcohol guardrails. Keep a 2-column trigger log. Add fiber-forward meals, morning light, and a fixed sleep window. If your clinician agrees, set a standing plan for non-sedating H1 and H2 support as needed. Weeks 3 to 4. Energize. Stabilize the power grid. Smooth out the overlap between energy stress and histamine. Start with protein-forward breakfasts, balanced meals, and add post-meal walks. Audit your caffeine timing. Cool your sleep environment, and track symptoms against steps and meal structure. Weeks 5 through 6. Strengthen. Build capacity safely. Train tolerance without poking the bear. Do 3 short, cool environment strength sessions per week. Avoid overheated rooms. Progress gradually. If your cycle drives flares, schedule deload weeks in those windows. Weeks 7 and 8. Withdrawal. Advanced friction audit. Now go deeper. Scan your pantry for stealth histamine sources like condiments and vinegars. Rotate fermented foods to low-stress days. Review medications with your clinician. Upgrade your food storage habits. And plan for travel with cool packs and single-serve freezes. Lastly, in week 9 to 10, rebuild tolerance, the gentle ladder. The goal here is freedom, not fear. Reintroduce 1 higher histamine food at a time. Small portions, wait 48 hours, then assess. Choose low-stress days with good sleep. Avoid stacking with alcohol. Keep what works, set aside what doesn't. If symptoms remain multi-system, talk with your clinician about MCAS evaluation. Metrics to watch weekly. Skin calm days, airway comfort, digestion, sleep regularity, flare hours, and exercise tolerance. If 3 or more are improving, you're on the right path, even before total freedom returns. Histamine isn't the villain, it's an alarm. When you match your next move to the right compass domain, the alarm becomes useful again. Let's land this with a quick compass check-in you can use tonight. Ask yourself 4 simple questions. 1. Did I stack friction today? Added aged foods, alcohol, or long-stored leftovers? If so, apply freshness rules for the next 72 hours and set alcohol guardrails. 2. How was my sleep and rhythm? If you're short on sleep, give your gut-liver axis a break. Fresh proteins, fiber-forward meals, morning light, and a set bedtime. 3. Did I ride a glucose roller coaster? Start tomorrow with a protein-forward breakfast and add a 10-minute post-meal walk. And 4. Did heat, pressure, or intensity flip the switch? Shift training to a cooler setting. Shorten sessions and build tolerance back slowly. If your cycle drives flares, plan lighter weeks around those windows. Pick 1 move from each domain this week. Don't chase perfection. Stack small wins and track them. If your pattern is severe or not improving, bring your notes to your clinician and discuss tailored medications or an MCAS evaluation. If you'd like help choosing your starting domain, take the free drift quiz at themetaboliccompass.com/quiz. You'll get a simple 1-week plan mapped to your biology. Before we wrap, a sneak peek at episode 20. Before you fast, detox, or biohack, do this first. If you've ever jumped straight into fasting or cold plunges while your Nurture and Energize baselines were shaky, that's likely flooring the gas with the parking brake on. I'll give you the checklist that makes those experiments safer, smarter, and more effective. Remember, histamine isn't your enemy. It's an alarm. When you lower inputs, stabilize your baseline, smooth the energy curve, and build capacity in that order, life feels quieter, clearer, and more under your direction. That's the compass in action. Thanks for listening to the Metabolic Compass. If this helped, share it with a friend who keeps saying, I'm just sensitive. You might be handing them the map they've been missing, and I'll see you in episode 20. You've been listening to the Metabolic Compass podcast, where we bridge cutting-edge science with real-life application to help you reclaim your health one directional shift at a time. To learn more, visit us at www.themetaboliccompass.com or follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Metabolic Compass. And if you haven't already, leave a review. It helps others find their way back to alignment too. Recalibrate your biology, rediscover your direction.